Prepare to be amazed as two men, legally classified as vintage, compete to recall pop culture nonsense from a time when parents smoked in grocery stores and Ronald McDonald roamed free, judged and scored by artificial intelligence. Chris and Jeff sift through the glorious wreckage of a gleefully neglected childhood, hoping to find meaning. Nice pull, because if we don't remember this crap, you know damn well someone's gonna try and reboot it and make it way worse. Well, Chris, here we are, episode 63. We're already hauling ass through the 60s. Holy moly. That went quick. Yeah.
It did.
So we were joking about the fact that episode 70 seems way off in the distance. But now, if my math, and Chris, again, we've said this a million times. I know you're not strong with math.
I'm not.
But after this episode, we will be a third of the way through the 60s. On our way to 70, Chris. Imagine that, episode 70. That's going to be a landmark. I don't even know what we're going to do for that episode, but that'll be cool.
That's cool, but I don't know. According to Dirk Pearson, we'll probably have 700 or 800 episodes. So, I don't know what to say.
Ooh.
That's what you say. Nice, Merv. Exactly. So that's a callback for all the listeners, and hopefully that made sense.
Well, look, before we jump in to the Father's Day episode, obviously, you and I both being fathers. I'm excited about this episode. Let's take a quick look at the score from the last episode and see who won. I'm just going to breeze right through this, Chris. There were some common topics that both of us touched on. These aren't ones that AI are interested in. AI is interested in, are interested in. Is AI plural? Does it go by them, they? What is the pronoun for AI? It's like it's an abbreviation.
Nope.
All right.
Not going to touch that.
We're not going to. Nope. We can't touch this. So some of the common,
thanks, MC Hammer.
Some of the common things that we talked about. Number one was Catwoman, right? We went back to the women of the 70s and the 80s. Yes. And so, yes, cat women, plural. We talked a lot about Julie Newmar and Yvonne Craig. We talked about a really weird PSA spot that had Yvonne Craig about to save Batman and Robin from near death. But first, she wanted equal pay.
Yes.
We talked a lot about, we did Eartha Kitt and Lee Merriweather as shout outs in the Catwoman world for that role.
Yes.
And you even mentioned the other one from the movies, right?
Right.
What's her name from Grease Part 2?
Well, we had Michelle Pfeiffer and
there you go.
And
we had all that stuff in there.
Yeah.
Sure.
Zoe Kravitz. Yeah.
Sure. Very good. We talked about other iconic women back then, which would be your Mary Tyler Moores and your Lucille Balls. We talked a lot about all the different things they did for television behind the scenes with their own production companies.
Pioneers.
Twilight. Hugely inspirational and also instrumental in getting a lot of shows off the ground, including The Twilight Zone and Star Trek, to name a few. Yes. We talked a lot about your favorite and my favorite, Barbara Eden and I Dream a Genie. Yes. And again, these were some of the more common topics, right, that we kind of shared. We did some stuff on Ginger Grant and Tina Louise. So beyond that, you and I pulled some scores that were individual to us, okay? And so let's just jump right in here to Jeff's polls. I love this guy. Look at this. My Living Doll, right? That was a very obscure reference. That was our girl, Julie Newmar, in a one-season show that was all about having a girl who's a robot. Go figure. I also made a reference when we talked about I Dream a Genie. We talked about the last episode of I Dream a Genie where she finally marries Anthony Nelson, and I made some weird David Lynch references and kind of got really into the HR Pufnstuf-esque LSD trip thing there, got some points there. I also had a Comic-Con story of showing up like a nerd that I am to Comic-Con and actually getting to meet Julie Newmar and Batgirl, Yvonne Craig, and so I got some points for that. And I also did a Catherine Ross poll. You also did, but Catherine Ross as Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, That
Mhm.
was well, she wasn't Butch Cassidy or the Sundance Kid. She was their
No.
mutual love interest in that.
Right, right.
And that got me some points. Plus, Yvonne Craig used to be a ballerina and had a bunch of dancing and ballet experience.
Mhm.
Um, or maybe not a ballerina so much as just a dancer, but something like that.
Mhm.
I had a
Mhm.
crazy idea for a Gilligan's Island spinoff that would involve just Marianne and Ginger and the professor. Apparently, AI really liked that. It loved my Roger Healy rant, where I was just
Uh-huh.
speaking for every man that wanted to, you
Mhm.
know, have
Uh-huh.
Genie all to themselves as Roger
Uh-huh.
Healy. I guess AI was impressed with that. And then, of course, we both talked about the fact that Eve Plum and Tina Louise famously did not want to be part of the after party for these shows, joining up with these crazy variety hours and
Mhm.
return to Gilligan's Island and all that. So
Yes.
I did make mention of the fact that, on day 4 of Coachella, Eve Plum's Veto and Not My Ginger are going to be playing
Yes.
at those shows. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So there you go. But Chris, you did really great. You had a whole bunch of polls here. Not only did you mention the Richard Diamond TV show, which I've never heard of in my life, where
Mhm.
Mary Tyler Moore actually appeared on that show, I think as his secretary, you said, and all
Yep.
you saw were her legs. Do I have that
Yes.
correct?
Yes. I believe
Okay.
she was a dancer. I think it's the whole dancer thing. I think there's a common thread there. But yeah.
And you were just a human IMDb, right, as you normally are. But you mentioned that Catherine Ross, of course, was on Stepford Wives, along
Mhm.
with Tina Luis, right?
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
mentioned that Tina Luis also appeared on Dallas. You knew about
Mhm.
Harper Valley PTA, which of course is a
Mhm.
decent poll for
Mhm.
Barbara Eden. You also knew that
Yes.
Julie Newmar was on Fantasy Island, and she was also
Mhm.
on Buck Rogers, and Yvonne Craig was on Wild Wild West. Yvonne Craig was on Man from Uncle. Jesus
Mhm.
Christ, Chris. And you also made some pretty fun comments, or at least brought up the fact again that Eve Plum and Tina Louise, again, famously did not
Right.
want to be part of having these roles be their whole life and get typecast forever, right? So,
Didn't work. I don't think it worked, but nice
no,
try.
I don't think it did. I think the damage had already been done.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and I did not mention this in the last episode, and I'm gonna have to get her name, but there is an actress that played Jan Brady in the movies, right? In the remakes of the Brady Bunch movies.
Oh,
And
oh.
dude, she is one of the funniest character actresses I have ever seen in my life.
Mhm.
I didn't think you could do a funny Eve Plum impersonation, but it's always Marsha, Marsha, Marsha. It's
Right.
just, she was so good. And she goes
Uh-huh.
into this like insane sequence in the car in one of the episodes or in one of the movies.
Uh-huh.
And she's just having this complete mental breakdown freak out. We always got the sense that Marsha Brady, excuse me, we always got the sense that Jan Brady was a little bit off, right? She
Just
she literally had
yes.
a yeah, yeah.
The
All
middle
right.
sister.
Again, without further, what, I'm going to go
Uh-huh.
ahead and add up these scores. Let's take a
Uh-huh.
look in the liquor cabinet at who won the last episode of Nice Poll. Here we go. Oh my goodness, look at that. That is close. That is
No, it's
close. Come on, man. That's very
no.
close. And when it gets that close, it does make you wonder,
Don't
doesn't
I
it?
don't no, it doesn't.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't
All
make
right.
me wonder.
I see. I see. Well, for those
It
of you that are
doesn't.
listening in and you haven't joined us on the old video screen yet, if you're not watching the show, Chris pulled out 542,961 points for all those polls. And his best friend Jeff got 582,582,304.
Uh-huh.
So only a 40,000 point difference. I don't know if AI
Only.
hears
Only.
us talking about this part right here, but it does seem to want to punish us a little bit by making it super
It
super close
does.
and
It
yeah.
does.
Now
Pissing me
now
off,
Chris,
AI.
I do want to
You're
go
pissing
back
me
to the
off.
last episode where you beat me by half a
I
million points. I'm not joking. Half a
okay.
million points,
Okay.
I think is what you beat me
I
by.
don't
So,
care. I don't
all
care.
right. You can
I
take a
don't
little
care.
spanking on that one. Sorry. All right.
Fine.
Well, hey, look, the past is the past and I'm not going to dwell.
Mhm. Yes.
That's a lyric, isn't it? The
I
past is the
think
past and
so.
I'm not
It
going to
is.
dwell.
Ooh,
In a
is it?
western town, dead-end girl. That's it, right?
Fucking
Western boys and East
Pet Shop
Pet
Boys?
Shop. It's the Pet Shop
Jesus.
Boys. In a western town with a dead-end girl, or something like
Yeah.
that. I don't know the
Okay.
damn lyrics.
Mm,
The past is the past, and I'm not gonna dwell. Okay,
mhm,
there you go.
mhm.
Chris, this is gonna be what? What is this episode? This is the Father's Day episode. Help us out
Mhm.
here. What's gonna happen?
Well, well, first of all, happy belated father, right? Because we just, Father's Day is obviously passed. We're, as everybody who listens, or if anybody who listens, we're both fathers,
Mhm.
dads, you know. um, so we just celebrated father, you with your family, me with mine, but it kind of got me to thinking about, really Father's Day, just fathers, right? We're fathers. We had fathers, okay? But we also had our perspectives of what we talk about here, our TV and film fathers, right? And the pop culture fathers that, and I think what was interesting is like that we compare as kids, I think we probably compared to our own fathers, right? And then maybe as we got older, we compared to ourselves, or maybe we compared ourselves to our fathers and these are, I don't know, I just got kind of fathered up, let's just say. And then and it also got me thinking too, it's just like, because I think dads and not to play, and for anybody's gonna want to say, we didn't do a Mother's Day episode. No, we didn't, because we're not mothers. So we're not even gonna attempt to have that perspective, right? But I could start off the fathers. First of all, it's like, so you had Mother's Day, right? Which was like a month ago, and it's
Mhm.
celebrate mom. And you see the ads, and you like buy mom flowers or jewelry or mom. Come, a month later, when it turns into Father's Day, it's like celebrate dads and grads. Okay. So we have to share Father's Day, right? I mean, they have to throw it in there. It's just like, so to me, it was just like, well, okay, it's good. Even though it's like, what about Kids Day? And we had that old F off. Kids, every day is Children's Day. There's a Grandparents' Day, but Father's Day is kind of just like, oh yeah, and celebrate your grads. And I know it's all marketing and I know it's all advertising, but they just kind of, screw it. Dads won't care. And maybe we don't care. You can just lump them in with the graduates, maybe high school graduates, college graduates, freaking middle school graduates. Who knows? Who cares? But to me, it was just like, yeah, dads and grads. And once again, dads are just like, yeah, okay. So anyway, not trying to get sympathy, not trying to play a sad song, but let's talk dads. I thought it would be fun to talk dads.
Yeah, for sure. Well, geez, you just said not to play a sad song, but Chris, maybe this would be a good opportunity to jump right in to some of these goddamn songs that have to do with dads over the years. I mean, there's so many. There's hundreds. But top 10 or top 100 hits. I mean, there's
Or
probably
yeah, or
you
even
know
one or
a few
two that,
dozen.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, but you're gonna get me all verklempt right at the beginning of the episode. That's fine. That's fine. But
Oh,
we can
really?
talk.
Okay.
So I
All
think,
right.
is there a song? I can think of a couple, two, three, and then we know there's a ton. But yeah, give me one. There's a one that jumps out at you as far as dads and fathers and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, we absolutely have talked about this before because we were talking about sad, depressing songs. And again, the one,
See? See? The dad songs are depressing. Are the mom songs depressing? No, they're fun. But anyway, go ahead.
yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
can't think of any. I really can't. I can't think of any mom songs that are depressing, but I'll bet you
Right.
if we dipped into the
There are
country
probably a
western
few.
genre, there's probably thousands of
Not
sad
doing that.
mom songs. I'll
Not
bet
doing
you
that.
no, we're definitely not doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so the one that comes to mind again that I have talked about
Mhm.
before is the little boy blue and the man on the moon. When you coming home, son, I don't know when. Right?
We'll be
That
together then, son. We'll have a good
good
time
time
then.
then. And the
Okay.
cat's in the
And the
cradle and the
cradle and the
silver
silver
spoon.
spoon, little
Yeah.
boy blue and the man and the moon. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, that's a banger. That's a classic. Go for it. Okay, what
Yeah.
what is that? Tell me and I have some thoughts. Tell me yours on that song. Cat Stevens, right? Um, oh no, I'm sorry, Harry
No?
Chapin. Harry Chapin. I jumped
Yeah.
ahead. Yeah.
And once again, we have talked about it.
Uh-huh.
The quicker we can move past this, I just felt it needed to be mentioned because it is one of the biggest father-son songs I can think of. I said this before, but I always think of that as a litmus test if I can hear that song randomly and not look back on my relationship with my kids and have remorse, then I feel like I've done a pretty good job. Now, maybe the reason I don't have remorse is because I'm a sociopath.
You're
That's
dead
also
inside. That's a
possible. I'm dead inside.
possibility.
But I do feel like if I can hear that song and not go, "Hey, that's
Yeah.
me," then
Right.
I think I'm doing okay, man.
Right.
And so I can't really listen to that song all the way through. I do have to kind of change the
Uh-huh.
channel. That's not what happens anymore. Chris, by the way, on a side note, do you actually listen to radio in your car, like traditional radio, where it's like an AM or an FM station? Is that even possible?
Yeah, if
Do they
I'll listen to
have
a little
radios?
I'll listen to a little sports radio, yeah, but other than
Okay.
that, no. But for the most part, no, I'm hooked up to a streaming service 95% of the
Okay.
time. So,
All right.
um, I'm glad we clarified that. I know you don't. I know you don't watch broadcast television. You haven't seen a commercial since, I don't know, 2019, at least
Commercial? What
broadcast. See,
what are
okay.
those? Oh, I see.
But no. Yes, my cat's in the cradle. Yeah, is it maudlin? Is it sad? Is it manipulative? Can I even say manipulative? All those things. Does it resonate? Does it? Yeah, because ultimately it's a it's a fable where the dad doesn't have time for his son in all of these instances, and then at the end the tables are turned, and guess what? The son doesn't have time for dad, and it's just like, oh shit. So it's just like, so I get it, and I think we have had those moments, right? I've had moments like where we've told our kids we were too busy, or
Mhm.
not right now,
Yeah.
or tomorrow, or something like that, or God damn it, leave me alone. And it's a little extreme, but I mean, I think so. We've all had those moments. So I think that song comes from a very true space, and so yeah, so it's I get it. It's a tough one to get through
Yeah.
because it's kind of it's like a walking, talking, living cliche, which are, hey, in cliches do have a little bit or a big foundation of truth. So anybody that's been a dad, anybody that's ever told their kid, not now, um, you can relate. So it's a banger. It's a classic dad song. But yeah, do you like put it on repeat? No. Do you don't even listen to it all the way through? Do you
The only
sing
reason you
along?
would put that on
No.
repeat is if you were
Uh,
trying to get the courage to jump,
okay.
right? Then you might have it on repeat. Come on,
Maybe.
Jeff, you can do
Yeah.
this. You can
The
do
last
this.
the last song he listened to. Um,
Yeah,
well, it's funny
that's
because,
right.
I there's one that think again, and I jumped the gun, with, uh, basically that I mentioned, Cat Stevens, and it's called Father and Son, and the same thing. It's actually sadder in that regard. It's very good. It's acoustic, but it's a father at the end of his life telling his
Okay.
son, all giving him advice. Someday you'll get married and all this stuff. So then you're thinking, oh God, this kid is kind of young because the kid's not even married. So this is maybe not even an old man or whatever. So Father and Son by Cat Stevens,
Mhm.
to me is just like, okay, I hear that song, but here's the thing, Jeff. I will listen to it all the way through
Mm.
because to me it's still kind of it's maybe because I'm not dead or on the verge of death. It's still it's almost like a instruction book to like make sure that I'm thinking in that terms. Maybe it was I didn't even know the timing of it. It's the response to Cats in the Cradle, but that one, okay, sticks out. And then there's one last one, and I just have to throw it in because again, it fit into the '80s, and with some of the bands. There's a song called "The Living Years," okay, by
Mm.
Mike and the Mechanics,
Oh,
okay,
wow. Really?
and Mike and the
Okay.
Mechanics, who Mike
Huh.
Rutherford, who was in Genesis. Okay. So it
Yep.
was kind of his spinoff, his solo
Mhm.
side project. I think it was Mike Rutherford. And there's a line in there about, I wasn't there that morning when my father passed away. And that's a song where it's like, it's slam the brakes on. That
Yeah.
one's like a gut punch because unfortunately I feel that I can relate to it. And
Mhm.
but then to be able to speak to that and to put that in a song, I'm
Mhm.
guessing it's real. I'm guessing it's a real story. Um,
Probably. Yeah.
but um, So, yeah, there's a lot of songs out there about dads. I don't know if you have any other that stick out. There's some fun ones, Papa Was a Rolling Stone, where dad was, like, really cool, well, cool in the sense that he was a little bit unreliable, but, I don't know if there's anything else that jumps out at you as far as dad songs go.
No, because ever since you said Mike and the Mechanics, my brain was reeling to try to remember that one hit song that was on MTV, and now I remember, "All I need is a miracle, all I need is you," right?
Dun
Something like that.
mhm.
Yeah.
Very good. Nice,
All I need
excellent
is a
pull.
miracle. All I
All I
need. I don't
need
know. Anyway,
Yes,
I'm probably off
exactly.
key there, but I remember they were trying to get something and they're trying to get to the guy owed somebody money and he was running
Mhm.
around throughout the entire video trying to
Right.
and wasn't the guy that was in that video the guy that also played Veruca Salt's dad?
Yes, yes, and they had,
Thank
like, a
you.
van. They, like I think their van
I
was
think
broken
so.
down, and they were trying
Yeah,
to get to
yeah.
a gig.
I
They were
think
trying to
he's
get
the
to a gig.
manager of the band,
I
right? And
think
so he's
so.
trying to get them to the gig or whatever.
Mhm,
And by the
mhm,
way, that same actor also, my favorite role, yes, Veruca Salt's dad, amazing. What
mhm.
what what line of business are you into? Nuts. Um, but all right, Wonka, how much for an Oompa Loompa? But
Yes.
the better role that he was in with was in a movie with Michael York and Richard
Mhm.
Chamberlain and a whole bunch of great actors called The Three Musketeers. And
Ah.
he was insane in that as a character actor. Anyway, if
I
anybody ever wants to look at that old version, don't. It does not hold up. The pacing is horrible, but back in the
Mhm,
day, that was an
mhm.
awesome
I
film, The
think
Three
Raquel Welch is
Musketeers.
in
Yeah.
that. Wasn't Raquel Welch
Oh,
in that
she
version or
was. Yeah.
something like that? Okay,
Incredible. Yeah.
okay.
Yep.
And then again, to want to just close the loop on that, yes, I remember that video so vividly because it was also there was a trend, I think, when someone told like, the directors, "Hey, these videos are like little movies." So they would
Mm.
have, like, an opening sequence and then almost like an epilogue, in between the 3 minutes and 35 seconds of music. So again,
Oh, right.
they're broken down and Mike is in a phone booth. Okay, a phone booth.
Yeah.
And he's literally I remember this line because 'cause I'm like, "What did he just say?" It was like, We had a spot of bother with the van." And I'm like, "I guess it broke down?" I had
So
no
British.
idea, but it stood out all these years later. I tried it, like, twice, and people were like, "What?" I go, "Never mind." It spotted doesn't hold up. Doesn't spot of bother doesn't hold up.
Uh, as long as we're going down weird tangents here, I have to say, Chris, that, when my wife and I sometimes run out of things to see on Netflix or Hulu, we'll always go over to, British programming and stuff that's maybe a
Oh,
little more
wow.
obscure for the States,
Uh-huh.
but it's like, and
Uh-huh.
they're almost always detective shows. Like the Brits are just fascinated. We are too, but just everything's like a true detective type of thing. But
Mhm.
my point in all of this is I love watching British shows because they have 1,000,000 weird expressions and turns of phrase and
Yeah.
secret code
Oh,
and
yeah.
euphemisms and idioms and
Mhm.
analogies. And you're just like, what? What?
Mhm.
Well, that's the poof that made the bloppa. It's like, what the
Mhm.
hell? Well, that's the bread that made the spotter blink. What?
Mhm.
The bread that made the spotter blink? The fuck does that mean? And then I start looking it up, and you can't keep up because in every episode, there's 200 of those. How, as a Brit, do you even memorize that many? How do you even get those into your lexicon? It's like insane.
Right, or even if there's a laugh track and then everybody goes crazy and you're not like I remember a Benny Hill joke specifically where he was talking to Igor, where he would go out during, like, his monologue and he's talking to the audience about and it turned into weight or something was heavy. He's like, "Oh, I didn't think they could lift me up. Someone would have to pick me up, and, that's nearly 11 stone." And everybody went like, "Ah, ha, ha," because like, Benny Hill is not a skinny guy. I had no idea what 11 stone meant, but it was clearly probably, not Benny Hill was not 11 stone. Benny Hill was probably, our 120 pounds or something like that. Or a couple of dads I thought would be fun to kind of talk about. And then, in addition to our own dads and ourselves as dads. So I don't know. I have a couple that stand out, and you can name a couple you stand out, and we can just kind of move on from there. But the dads that stand out to me, and again, we have to keep in mind that some of these we watched in reruns. We did not watch when they were first aired, but I can think of a few dads, TV dads specifically. I think of Hugh Beaumont, who was the one and only Ward Cleaver. I think of the mentioned many, many times on this show, Robert Reed. aka Mike Brady. And
Yep,
then I think
of course.
probably for the last one I think the most as far as dads, um, to me sort of the would kind of be Archie Bunker, played by Carol O'Connor playing Archie Bunker because that
Sure.
dad,
Yep.
an iconic character, but
Yep.
kind of see, those are the ones that kind of stuck out to me, at least from television. And there's a bunch of film ones, but
One of my favorite dads of all time on TV
mhm.
is a dad that wore multicolored sweaters and also did pudding pop commercials. And I loved
Are we
him. I
going
loved
there?
him to death.
Are
And
we
now
going there?
I just like Voldemort, I will not speak his name, but it is so weird in your brain to
Yes.
occasionally be reminded of someone, right? And go, "Oh, hey," and you think of a good memory, and
Uh-huh.
then it immediately gets buffered, right? Or it
Mhm.
immediately gets hit with this wall of like, "Oh, wait, hold on a second," right? So, it's always weird, when that person just keeps popping up in my mind randomly, and you have to go, "Oh, shit, that's right. Wow." So let's move on from that. Um, I'm gonna go in opposite direction. There
Okay.
were many dads, of course, that I
Oh,
loved.
so
Hugh
many.
Beaumont,
Yeah.
loved Hugh Beaumont. I thought,
Right.
of course, Mike Brady, great. Archie
Mhm.
Bunker. Once I was old enough to understand what that was, that the whole
Mhm.
thing was to be making fun
Right.
of bigots and
Mhm.
racists,
Once you got the joke.
then
Uh-huh.
it made total sense, and I saw the genius of it. I didn't get it at first as a kid. It didn't make any sense to me. But I'm gonna go the opposite direction, Chris. I'm gonna talk about the dads that bugged the shit out of me, that I
Okay.
did not like. So one of them, and boy, am I gonna get some hate mail here. I'm gonna get people really upset, is Michael Landon. I did not like him. I'm sorry. I know. It's
Okay.
sacrilege. It is absolutely
No,
sacrilege. Now,
it's
don't get me
not.
wrong. He's a good-looking man. I get
Mhm.
why women or younger women would go, "Wow, he's awesome." But he was always like super strict and just
Mhm.
I don't know, for some reason his role on that show, he just seemed dickish to me. Just nothing, it always seemed kind of sad and morose, and I guess he's on a prairie and he's got a lot of shit on his mind, right? And someone's always losing a leg or having something happen that's bad.
Going
There's always
going
something
blind.
burning down, or somebody's dying of typhoid or syphilis or losing their eyesight or getting addicted to morphine. Fuck, there's a lot going on in that fucking
What?
prairie. But
Whoa.
yeah, but no, there was that kid got addicted to morphine. I know
Okay.
that. Yeah.
I
The kid that came along later that was like adopted and he was Willie or whatever his name was. I don't know. No, wrong guy. Who cares? Anyway, I did not like his portrayal on that show. I always felt a little depressed by his character. I don't know. Go figure. The other person, the opposite direction, is the most bland portrayal of a dad, maybe in the history of television, would
Mhm.
be Eight is Enough.
Oh.
Sorry, but Tom
Ooh.
Bradford on Eight is Enough, I could you be less interesting? It's almost like the opposite of
Right.
drawing me in to any episode.
Right.
Plus, he just had a voice. What's the actor's
Mhm.
name, Chris? I'm gonna give
Dick
you a
Van
poll on
Patten.
that.
Dick Van
Thank
Patten.
you. I I just whatever it is, man. Again, this is a Sammy Hagar moment. They don't deserve my ire, but for some reason, I'm just not into it. I don't like the Dick Van Pattens, right? No. Um, was there more than one? Why am I saying Dick Van Pattens? There's only one, right?
I will agree with I think if Kraft American Singles were a person, they would have been Tom Bradford. They would have been Tom yeah, they would have been Tom
If mayonnaise
Bradford.
on white bread was a human,
I think I stopped paying attention when unfortunately the real actress Diana Hyland, who played as the wife, the mom on that show, passed away, and then they replaced her like almost immediately with Betty Buckley, who was like 34 years old, who was like the same age as some of the kids and was this statuesque, like, I guess, brought dancer, speaking of dancers. So it was just like, okay, yeah, sure. I'm sure somebody that looked like Betty Buckley would immediately jump into a marriage with some dude who had 8 kids.
yeah. I always love Rob Schneider movies, right? Where you can tell he was somehow part of the production team, or maybe he was an executive producer, or he was buddies with the producer. But it's always like, "Hi, I'm a short, insufferable dick, and somehow my wife is a statuesque supermodel. And we're all supposed to, and by the way, the premise isn't I cast a magic spell, therefore this person that shouldn't be with me is somehow with me. On all the Rob Schneider movies, it's just part of the premise. We're just supposed to believe that that's his wife or his girlfriend because he's that much of a douche, in my opinion. I can't stand him. He's on the list.
He learned that from Adam Sandler, right? Who casts Salma Hayek and Jennifer Aniston and whoever else as his wife. But
I'm so sorry, Charles Ingalls. I am so sorry, Tom Bradford. I'm also so sorry to Tom Bosley because it's not his fault. Now, on this one, I'm not blaming Tom
whoa,
Bosley, and
whoa!
it's not Happy
He
Days.
almost
So
made
don't
my
worry. Yeah,
okay.
no. It's Wait Till Your Father Gets Home. And again, not his fault. Not his
Oh,
fault.
now you're pole
But,
farming. Okay.
but pole farming. Chris, do you know whose drummer just died about 3 weeks ago? Pole farming.
Mhm,
I
okay.
know they did. So Harry Boyle was the
Uh-huh.
character, right, on Wait Till
Right.
Your Father Gets Home, the cartoon. And it's not Tom Bosley's fault, but that cartoon to me is so shit. It is not funny. There is not a
Mm,
single episode that was even
mm.
mildly entertaining to me, right? As a kid, I literally got depressed when I would even see it advertised or see that opening theme song. I'm like, Jesus Christ, that's a cartoon.
Mhm.
And his voice would come in as, all right, you guys. And it just, everything was so down and depressing and gross. I don't know.
And in a weird cross confluence, right? Wasn't I think Willie Ames was the son, right? Willie Ames from Eight Is Enough. I think Willie Ames, a younger Willie Ames.
Interesting. Wow.
So it's
Good
all
job.
tied together. I agree. And you're talking, so good. Okay. I'm glad we didn't have to have a Howard Cunningham debate here because I know
No, no,
again
no, no.
we've referenced Happy. He almost made
That's
my list, but
sacred. That's
but I
sacred.
look at
Yeah.
but I look at like the dads that I liked, and again when you talk about because Hugh Beaumont, who basically just had to be warm and understanding, and the Beaver got into some sort of trouble generally. He was the Beaver, and
Yeah.
she had to come home to June with her pearls and her nice dress, and
Yeah.
where did we knew nothing about Ward Cleaver really, didn't know where he came from, didn't know anything. Well, like where did Ward Cleaver work? Do you remember?
I don't. Do you?
He worked at the office, Jeff. He worked
All
at the
right.
office.
That's
Okay?
right.
He worked at the
Yeah.
office with do you remember any of his coworkers?
Was it
There's
Lumpy Rutherford's dad, one of his
Fred Rutherford,
coworkers? Fred Rutherford.
Fred
Yeah.
Rutherford, right? Who Richard Deacon, who was also on another class. Do you remember
I by
Parallel?
the way, I'm so sorry, but I'm just laughing in my right now in my mind because every time Beaver would call him Lumpy,
Mhm.
Barbara Billingsley would correct him. Oh,
Call him
Beeve. It's his name is Clarence.
Clarence. Yes,
Oh, you
right.
mean
And
Lumpy?
yeah,
Yeah.
yes. So Fred Rutherford then eventually went and was on the writing staff. I guess maybe it was before he was on the writing staff of the Alan Brady show on
Yes,
the
of
Dick
course.
Van Dyke show. He was on the staff.
Yeah.
He was like a producer, right? And he was like Mel Cooley, and he was
Yeah.
basically a foil. Just like I don't think Fred Rutherford ever really got to do much on the show. He was also pretty much like Buddy Sorrell and
Mhm.
Rosemary's character and Sally. They would like
Right.
tag team on insulting him and make fun of him being bald. The
Right.
bald jokes I guess started a lot
Huge.
longer than we thought, right?
God
So
forbid you were fat and bald. Those are the
right,
two biggest things that
right,
are gonna get you
right,
into a roast and
right.
get you into real big
Right.
trouble.
And it always made me
Yeah.
wonder too, because like Buddy and Sally, which were such, 50s, 60s names, I always kind of thought maybe there was something going on between those two, even though I think
Yeah.
Sally was single, but Buddy's wife was Buddy's wife Pickles showed up every now and then, but just so they could take shots at Mel. But anyway, way off the topic. So you had Hugh Beaumont, you had Mike Brady. Now we knew what Mike Brady did, right? What did he do?
Architect.
He was an architect. He even had like a den where he did work. He was like a original home office guy,
What he
right?
didn't have was anywhere on that blueprint for more than one bathroom for 6 kids. That was my favorite part.
So at least we knew a little bit about him, and then we did know it's like, man, he good dad. It's the blended family takes these women. It's he was all good. There was never any issues really based on the fact that the family was blended, and Mike Brady all along good guy. Eventually grew his hair out a little bit and got that fro going, and then Archie Bunker, who like you said we didn't know at the time was really a parody. Carol O'Connor was like a very super liberal guy in real life. Archie worked down at the plant. Okay. I think the plant showed up every now and then,
Of
and
course he did.
eventually
Blue collar.
eventually,
Yep.
yes,
Yep.
he drove a cab and then owned a bar,
Okay.
Kelsey's bar.
Gotcha. Right.
So all of those things,
Wow.
so we knew all those things about those dads, and you know, but to me it was about, and I don't know if you did this, and hopefully again we're not even going to touch the guy who wore sweaters, and we're not even going to touch the guy on the prairie, and we're not even going to touch the vanilla guy with 8 kids and a hot younger wife. But did you ever look at those dads and compare them to your dad?
Um, not really. The closest that I kind of did a comparison just because my dad was such a huge fan of this actor, and we just talked about the show, is Dick Van
Mhm.
Dyke.
Okay.
Dick Van Dyke, I think everybody wishes, well, I'm everybody, and anybody that grew up back then, especially if you grew up in the 50s, right? But
Mhm.
Dick Van Dyke just always seemed like, and he's alive today and just the greatest guy ever. You'll notice Dick Van Dyke is never involved in any controversy. He's just a sweet, great
Oh,
guy.
Dick Van he rules.
And and can you imagine having a dad that's a comedy writer and just
Mhm.
is so nice and lovable and
Yeah.
goofy and fun? And so I
Mhm.
always thought he would be the greatest dad ever, in my opinion. But
Mhm.
my dad, Chris, and I love your dad, Chris. I really do. I again, like I said, I've never met your dad, but I love the
Mhm.
stories that you tell about
Mhm.
him. I feel like I get his
Mhm.
personality. My dad was this is going to shock you. Are you ready? Are you sitting down, Chris?
Uh,
My dad was a little bit
yes.
sarcastic. Um, he was a bit of a smartass. I'm not going to lie,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I don't know if that might have rubbed off. It's possible. My dad was also a bit of a dreamer. He loved to he loved poetry and he loved to think about
Wow.
beautiful situations. He was really into musicals, right? So he would always kind of go off on these sort of fantasy scenarios in his mind, like we all did when we sit down and watch a movie. But my dad really loved the cinema. But his
Mhm.
biggest thing, Chris, was he loved westerns, right? And so as a
Mhm. I think we
kid,
talked about
I
that, yeah.
we talked about that. I grew up with a
Mhm.
lot of guns around the house. My dad was very safe with them. He was very much a
Making bullets.
cowboy.
Mhm.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, being kind of a dreamer and being a bit of a poet at heart, he was oftentimes the classic 70s dad where he was a bit absent. Now, not neglectfully absent, like I had anything less than a great childhood. My childhood was awesome, but
Mhm.
classic 70s dad, right, Chris, where it's just like, dude, I don't even care where you are, Jeff. Just your mom says you're supposed to be home, so just come home. Right?
Mhm.
My dad,
Right.
if I didn't see my dad for a week, I'm not sure he would have noticed, honestly.
I once made a reference to my dad being like the Mexican Tom Bosley because they had their hair was like the same and they had like the same. He didn't like that. He didn't think that was funny. I thought it was hilarious. I think wait till your father gets home. Just take the title because I think that's what we all lived under, right? Because there was that sort of, well, wait till your father gets home. I'm going to tell him what the crap you just pulled, right? And you're gonna get you're in some kind of trouble. And I think we lived under that in the sense of like it was a legit fear. Like, oh crap. It's like moms aren't into the discipline. Moms are gonna be highly disappointed. Dad's gonna yell. My dad yelled. Okay. That's and again, when it comes to parenting my own
Keep going.
kids,
Mhm.
there's times when like I'm talking I my dad comes slips out. I hear his voice, right? I hear his tone, maybe even the posture. And so I'm like channeling my dad unintentionally, even though I have used that line with my kids, like, if I'd have pulled that, if I'd have said that, if I'd have done that here's how my dad would have reacted. So even though I think we learned a lot and we get to see all these other things as dads, but man, it's just like, I do feel that it's unintentional. So it's like, I'm going to be like my dad today. But it kinda creeps up on me. I don't know, but I mean, do you
Yeah.
feel the same way? I mean, I
Yeah.
like
I have a lot of dad isms. I
mhm,
started writing them all down. My dad was big on catchphrases and
okay,
and saying little jokes and turns of phrase. Right now, they weren't all things that he had made up himself, but there's just so many. He passed away when I was 23, so I
mhm,
didn't get a ton of time with him. But
mhm,
when I was young, It sounds like the beginning of a song, right? Like, it is, right? It's a song. It's got to be. When I was young,
Yes,
that seemed that
yes.
life was so blah blah blah.
Okay.
A miracle. Okay, sorry.
Okay. Oh,
I went into
Supertramp.
Supertramp. Yeah, I went into
Good
Supertramp all of a
lord.
sudden. Yeah, sorry.
My dad gave me some really essential skills. Like he taught me how to make a multitude of cocktails at a very young age.
Hmm.
He taught me how to grill just about anything. I
Hmm.
could never fix anything, which he really hated, even when I got like my own first house and everything. And eventually, I don't know if I ever told you this, is like when I became an adult and had my first house. And then from that point on, every birthday or Christmas, he would get me like a tool. But so he taught me your basic kind of things. But I think what he taught me, mistakes he thought he had made, and he wanted me to learn from them.
So, Chris, as a huge treat, as something that I am just so excited about, I'd like
Mhm.
to open up that liquor cabinet one more time because you know that we have a guest in there, somebody
Mhm.
that was part
Oh,
of a
yeah.
very, very famous nuclear family, pardon the pun, but everybody, this is Billy Mumy, who famously played, and we've talked about this many times, right? Um,
Mhm.
uh, Characters on the Twilight Zone, right, where
Yes.
he had the ability to do anything he wanted with his mind, and it was pretty
Mhm.
funny because all of the adults around him are like, "We love you very much. You're a good
Yeah.
kid,"
Right.
and he would
Right.
wish them into the cornfield, right?
Yes.
Um, and of course, his most iconic role was
Mhm.
young Will Robinson on Lost in Space, right? From the Robinson family. And of course,
Mhm.
his dad in that show was Guy Williams, who
Mhm.
was a super fucking cool dad. Talk about a cool dad. Your dad is
Mhm.
literally the captain of a spaceship, and he's going to take you into the outer reaches of outer space
But he
in a
gets lost.
goddamn flying saucer. He
But he
does,
gets
but it's Dr. Smith's fucking fault that that happened. All right. So
okay.
let's go back to that.
Maybe he was a typical dad that didn't wanna ask for directions, right?
Dr.
So I think
Smith,
that,
yeah,
fuck Dr.
everybody
Smith.
knows from Lost in Space that because Dr.
Mhm.
Smith, who was trying to get away from people, stowed
Mhm.
away on the ship, the weight balance was all off and they hit an asteroid belt. And that's what caused the original problem. Everyone knows that. I don't want to bore your audience with what
And
we already know.
right.
But
I think he was actually, in addition, all these qualifications, I think he was on an episode of the Brady Bunch. Um,
yep. Yeah.
also, he wrote comic books, and then I think leading up to and then he's had a band. So,
Yeah.
if there's anybody right up the nice pull alley, so to speak,
Yeah.
wheelhouse, Billy Mumy. Yes.
Billy Mumy. It's actually
Mumy,
Mumy. I'm sure that
Mumy.
poor guy gets tired of people saying mummy. I said mummy for
Uh,
years. It's only one
yes.
M. And speaking of music, yeah, my buddy Barry reminded
Mhm.
me that Billy Mumy is in or has recently been in a band called the Cowsills, which actually has one of the Bangles in it. So yeah,
Nice.
he's also the one that did the novelty song back in the day,
Fish
fish
heads,
roly
roly
poly,
poly
fish
fish
eat
heads,
them up,
fish head,
yum.
eat 'em up,
Yeah,
yes.
I'm from Dr.
Okay.
Demento. But
Mhm.
why am I saying all of this? Well, there was
Why,
an
Jeff?
episode of Lost in Space that I saw when I was a kid. And Billy Mumy and his sister, Judy Robinson, right? They are sitting at a
Mhm.
campfire and they are on some desolate planet in the middle of nowhere. Billy Mumy actually picks up an acoustic guitar in that episode and, I might say, sings with a really good voice, right?
Oh. Mhm.
So both of them kind of harmonize and they sing Sloop John B, the
Mhm.
famous Beach Boys song, My Grandfather and Me, right? So
Mhm.
I didn't get it at the time. I didn't understand the relevance of that song, but obviously that song is all about going on this horrible trip where it was supposed to be the sailing adventure with him and his grandfather and everything just goes to shit and now
Mhm.
they're lost at sea or whatever's happening. I never understood the relevance to the show Lost in Space, but of course it's very poignant to sing that song. But anyway, as a kid I'm like, "Holy crap. That guy's really young and look at him. He's playing that guitar and he's singing."
Mhm.
So I I uh I went ahead and with your permission, Chris, we contacted our buddy Billy Mumy and asked
Mhm.
him if he wouldn't mind reprising that little moment. So, you know, let's take a look real
Mhm.
quick here at our buddy Billy Mumy giving us a flashback to that episode of Lost in Space, plus, Chris,
Yes.
plus a bonus that he
Ooh.
did for us, which
Ooh.
brings a tear to my eye.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
Hey, Jeff and Chris from the Nice Pull podcast. It's your pal Bill Mumy. Yeah, we come on the sloop John D. My grandfather and me. Around Nassau town, we did roam. Drinking all night. Got into a fight. I wanna go home. So hoist up the John D. sails. See how the mainsail set. Call for the captain ashore. Let me go home. Let me go home. I wanna go home. Yeah, yeah. Well, this is the worst trip I've ever been on. Whatever. Well, you guys, this 55-year-old Martin D45 had never played the theme song from Lost in Space before, but it has now. Peace.
Chris, the fact that you and I have these memories of this guy, and now the fact that we asked him to play the Lost in Space theme song, and he really grabbed that guitar and did it. And I guess as he said, that's the only time that guitar has ever played the Lost in Space theme song, which to this day is one of my favorite science fiction theme songs of all time. I just love that song. What a cool dude. Thank you so much, Billy Mumy.
Completely. Thanks, Billy.
Really, really meant a lot to me. And especially in light of the fact that a couple of days after Billy recorded that for us, Brian Wilson, the Beach Boy founder that actually wrote that song, sadly passed away. So an extra tier of sadness there. Brian Wilson, just one of the all-time geniuses of music. And God bless him. And thank you again, Billy. We really appreciate it.
Very cool.
What else can we say, Chris, other than until next time?
Until next time, Jeff.